Hi there, Laura here, the founder of Get Organized HQ, and I want to talk about an area of organization that is really, really important, and that is organizing your finances. So most of us have felt at least some kind of pressure from inflation and finances, and if you want to succeed financially, the first vitally important step, but I will admit that it's really hard, is you gotta know what you're currently spending. If you have no idea what you're spending where and you cannot track that, then nothing you do financially is really gonna move the needle. So that's where we all have to start. But as you know, if you try to do this, it can be really, really tricky. We have expenses coming from everywhere. I have bills that come out on auto payment. I buy things online. I buy things in the store. And then I'm like, okay, I got to wrangle all this. What did I spend here? What category was this? I have found a tool, and I have researched and I've actually tried many tools that makes this job so easy. And let me tell you, literally I spend about 2 minutes each weekday, and not even every weekday. So every once in a while I'll skip this, but a couple minutes a weekday, and then probably 5 to 8 minutes every month when it's time to set the budget. And that's all the time it takes. And I've got all of my spending categorized. I know exactly what we're spending on what. And then I can just make so much wiser financial decisions. And I'm also actually looking at the truth, because it's easy to say, well, I'd say we spend $800 a month on groceries. But then if I look at the good, cold, hard facts, and it's showing that actually at grocery stores, I've spent $1,400 a month, and that's been true for the last 6 months, then that is the reality. And if I'd like to spend $800 a month, we're gonna have to make some changes. I'm gonna have to do something different. I'm gonna have to shop somewhere different. I'm gonna have to buy different types of things, but at least now I know. So I wanna show you how I use this tool. The tool is called YNAB, YNAB, and it stands for You Need a Budget. And it has both a desktop version and an app version. So you can literally do this with just your phone. It will take you on the order of, depending on how complicated, how many accounts you have, 20 to 30 minutes to set up. And then once it's set up and running, like I said, it only takes a couple minutes a day. And that's what I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you from day one, here's exactly how you set it up. There are tons of different tutorials online. YNAB also makes their own videos that are really, really good. So you can watch those as well. And then if you love this and you're like, hey, Laura, I really want you to set one up for us, I can create more videos, but I'm just gonna show you the day-to-day of how I use it so you can get a sense of if you think this is something that would be helpful for you and that you would like to use for yourself. When it is time to categorize transactions, I let them build up in here so that I could show you. But typically I do this on an almost daily basis, especially Monday through Friday. So there's usually 1, 2, 3 for me to categorize. Literally this takes like a minute. And even if I were to do it once a week, it would take less than 5 minutes. It's this easy. So what I do is, first of all, as they come in, if I previously categorized one for a specific store, it's going to go ahead and make that suggestion for me. And all I have to do is click it and say approve. Yep, that was Amazon. Yep, that was Meijer. Yes, that is fast food and takeout. Then if something does not have a category, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click it and I can choose which category is it. And that will assign it to that category. It's literally that easy. And like I said, it takes me about 5 minutes a week. And again, this is all hooked up to my bank accounts and my credit card so that every transaction just comes in here. So I don't put them in as I spend them. You can, and then you would match them up. But I just look at what I have spent and go ahead and categorize it. When everything has been assigned, I go here to all accounts, and it says, that everything has been assigned, so I'm good to go. And then the next day I'll come in, I'll click all accounts, and I'll assign whatever new transactions came in. Now I want to say a word about your budget categories. So they will allow you to create whatever categories you want, and you can do them in, like, first of all, there's the broad categories. So, you can I put all my monthly bills together, and then under that is each bill. And then all the general variable spending is what I call it. That's just general spending for me. And then under that is all of our categories for that. I have eating out as a separate category. I have sinking funds. These are things that, like, they're not like groceries that you would purchase every month, but things that you might save up for and purchase on a less regular basis, like furniture or home maintenance and things like that, medical expenses. We have charitable giving, savings, investing, taxes, and then I have an archive. So I don't like to delete categories once they're done. Like I'll never use that category again, like a tax for quarter 1. So those are my broader categories. I would encourage you in general to have less rather than more, both in broad categories and individual categories. Don't choose as many as mine to start with. I also want to say a note about how I categorized. Especially in my general variable spending, I have categorized in a different way than most people, especially for groceries. You'll see here that I have Target, Amazon, Sam's Club, Costco, Aldi, Walmart, other grocery stores. Somewhere on here I have Meijer. So instead of categorizing like many people do, where this would be food, cleaning products, clothing, all the individual categories within that, I instead mostly categorize by store. Again, this is not typical, but I love it this way because here's what happens. If I were trying to categorize and say, this is a cleaning or paper product, this is a food product, this is clothing, what would happen is that I would say, go to Target and I would buy a couple food items, a clothing item, a cleaning item, a craft item, and then I would need to bring that receipt home, do some math, wait until it comes into YNAB, so save that receipt for a couple days, and then break down the transaction once it comes in. Now you can totally do that. They'll allow you to easily break down transactions like that, but that's a lot of work. That's a lot of keeping track. That's a lot of math. That's a lot of work. And in the end, I realized, while it might be nice to know exactly how much we're spending, say, on personal care products versus cleaning products versus food, yeah, I mean, that could be nice, but it's actually not that critical that I know that information. Instead, by doing it by store, it's so easy. This is Target. And also it automatically categorizes for me. So whenever something comes in from Target, it already assigns a Target. Same with Amazon and Meijer and Aldi and all the stores. So it makes it so easy. And instead of looking at it by category, I'm looking at it by store. And that totally works because my overall thing that I need to know is just how much in general we have spent, not necessarily the exact breakdown. So if you don't need to know the exact breakdown, I encourage you to use bigger, broader categories that are easier to assign your transactions. Think about the ease of use rather than the individual details. And if you think you really do need to know that, maybe consider starting, if this is new to you, with a broader category. So I have seen people just have one envelope for bills, one for general spending, and one for savings. Like that, I have seen people go that broad and it still works. You're still tracking your money, you're still seeing where it goes, but start a little bit broader like that and make it really easy for yourself to categorize. Now, this is one of the things that I love about YNAB is how easy it is to take care of my budget, at the beginning of each month when I'm assigning money to categories and cleaning up the last month. So let's say it's the beginning of April. I would go here to March. I would click budget. I would make sure that I'm on, March of 2024. And then I can just click these overspent. And this is going to allow me, before I set my budget for the next month, to clean up any categories that are overspent. It's of course important to do this so that you don't end up with not enough money because you have overspent categories. So it makes it really easy. And then all you do is when you get to the overspent category, so I spent like $217 extra in this category of Target, and you choose which envelope you want to cover this overspending with. And for me, I have set aside what I call a lifestyle for this year budget. I do this every year, which means that's a little bit of, from our savings, I set aside a little bit to have margin in my budget for the entire year when we just go over on general lifestyle expenses. So grocery stores, we also overspent. So again, I just type in lifestyle. We're going to cover it with that. But you could, for example, let's say that I was like, I don't have that lifestyle category set aside. I think a lot of people don't do that. So let's say that I was like, ooh, we got to take this from somewhere. Let's choose kitchen appliances. So I could instead choose that budget category, and it's forcing you to decide
when you do overspend, it has to come from somewhere, right? So it's forcing you to decide, like, what is it that I need to cover this overspending with? And yes, I went $1,100 over in medical expenses. This is just kind of life. Like, in this case, my kids needed a teeth pulled. They have really bad teeth situations. That was really expensive. I thought dental insurance was going to cover it, but it covered very, very little of it, and it was like a true need. So that's why we went so far over. I didn't have a way of knowing that. And again, that's why I really like to have that extra lifestyle category, and that's why I like that it makes it so easy. So now I'm cleaned up. We got all of our overspending for March cleaned up. If you underspent, obviously it doesn't show up on overspending. It will just keep the money there, and it depends on how you set up your envelope as to what it's going to do with it. But basically, it will just carry over to the next month. So you'll start the next month with more money in that envelope, and you won't need as much money to fund it, is kind of how it works. And most envelopes are, like, I don't spend exactly on most of the spending envelopes. I don't spend exactly that amount. You know, at the grocery store, I don't know exact amount that I'm going to spend. So it's pretty normal. The next beauty of YNAB is here when I'm ready to assign my monthly budget. I have collected up all the money from the month before to be used this month, first of all. And this is one of the beauties of YNAB, and one of their core principles is that they want you to be spending the money you earned the month before. So that's really your first savings goal, even before an emergency fund, is to get a month ahead. I know this can be difficult, but if you can do this, it's going to be so worth it for several reasons. First of all, you're not playing any games or worrying about, do I actually have this money in my account? Like, do I need to wait a few days until I get paid to pay this bill? Like, I'm spending in April. When I set my budget, that's for only using the money that I earned in March. When I earn money in April, it gets set aside and goes up to this ready to assign bucket, so that in May, I will assign that money and use that money. So the other beauty of this is for those of us who have variable incomes, which I know is a lot of people. Every time we talk about this, I get lots of questions about that. Some of us, you maybe work on commission. Maybe you're the type of person who doesn't have, like, you're a freelancer, you don't have like a steady salary that you know you get exactly this much every month. So that allows you to work with the money that you've actually earned the month before. And then, because of the way YNAB works, in each category, it allows you to set targets. So let me explain what those targets are. And by setting those targets, that means I fund my budget, like I make it in one click. So in each target, what you can do if I click edit here is there's different types of targets. One is needed for spending. So what this means is that every month when I assign my budget, I need $176 for spending. I always say that I need it on the first of the month because I want all that money to go in right on the first of the month. But let's say that I still had $20 left in there. This one said at $176. Let's say I had $20 left in there from the month before because I only spent $156. It will only add $156 because it's going to bring me up to that $176 mark. When you're setting up your categories, if you take the time to do this, then your budget will be literally one click. The other way that you can do it is a savings balance, and it tells you right here. And that means that you have a target of a specific balance. So for example, in an emergency fund, maybe I want a $5,000 emergency fund. So I would put in the savings balance, I would call it a savings balance. I would put $5,000. And what that means is that once it has $5,000, it's not going to add any more money. So if I had $5,000 in there, when I run my budget, it's not going to assign any more money to that. But if, for example, last month we had a hot water heater go out, it was an emergency, we had to spend $500 of this account, now we're down to $4,500, it will assign $500 and always bring it up to the balance. So this is one that you want to keep this balance in at all times. You can even say what date you need it by, so it will help you build it up over time. So like, let's say you had $0 in there and you want $5,000, but you want it by next year, it'll help break it down for you so you're not putting it all in at once because you may not have that amount of money to put in. Monthly savings builder is for savings goals with unknown targets. So what that means would more be like, I know that every month I just want to set aside $200 for vacation no matter what. It's not like I always want this amount in there. I just know I'm setting aside this for vacation, maybe car replacement every month. We want to set aside this amount of money. I highly recommend that once you pay off your car, if you have a car payment and it's paid off, go ahead and keep that in your budget, but as a monthly savings builder so you can pay save ahead of time to pay cash for your next car. And this would be for debt payment. I don't personally use that, but that is another option that allows you to do to help you budget for your payments until you're debt free. I also really like here where you can click here and they have really good education to show you how to use this. And that's one of the things that I think is something I love most about YNAB is that they do have good education themselves, also good YouTube channels that I can watch and see how other people have done it, which makes it so much easier for me to do. So there's like the overall overview on targets, and that was something I didn't understand the first time that I used this, and that's where I went wrong, and it was harder. And once I understood that, it changed everything, and now I know how to easily set up my targets. So once you've done that, there's nothing else to be done when it's time to assign your money. So when I'm ready to set my budget, and normally I don't have all the spending here, I just waited a long time because I knew I was going to be filming this video and I wanted to show you all how I actually do this. So I just clicked assign. You can do this manually, but again, if you've set up your targets correctly, you don't need to. All you need to do is click underfunded, and boom, it's going to assign all your categories as you predefined. However, if you have the case, and this is always the case with me, that you have set up your target such that you don't actually have enough money in that ready to assign category to fill all of them, it's going to tell you where you left off. So it's going to tell me that I don't have enough money to fully fund medical expenses. And anything after that on this list will not be funded. So what I do is I'm going to go ahead and assign the money, and then I go down and I find medical expenses that they only partially funded, and I realize that anything below this did not get funded. And so I have to decide if I want to fund those categories. What I can do is move money around. So let's say that I'm like, all right, let's move money from medical expenses to car repairs, or from car repairs to medical expenses. I can do that. So it's up to you. Now, in my case, all of these are some type of savings kind of categories where we're not spending it every month. So a lot of times if I let those go, it's okay. I just need to know that I'm not reaching those savings goals, and it's going to come back to get me eventually. Like, eventually, if I skip adding to car repairs this month, may not be a big deal. But if every single month I skip that, we're going to get to a point where we have a car repair need, and we just don't have enough money to cover it. So that's how we do that. But did you see how fast that was? That was all I had to do. And then my whole budget is funded. So I love that about YNAB.
Now, obviously, this was not a comprehensive tutorial about how to use the entirety of YNAB. If you are interested in more videos, either on YNAB or the topic of, succeeding with finances in general, let me know below in the comments.